This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back to the show. Excited to be back here with Melvina's Cat Ranch. Yes, she's the head welfarist and owner in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Mel, as we call her, Kleverova Zilliox, is an amazing soul and focusing on behavior training modifications for fear-free, low-stress methods and so much more to help with your friendly felines and so much more. How are you doing today, darling?
I am great. Thank you. How about yourself?
Great. Thanks so much. We're excited to have you here to talk a little bit about enrichment from tabbies to tigers, how human
Mhm.
caregivers, and family members can enrich feline lives. So we're excited to get
Yes.
started to talk about
Yeah.
the 5 pillars of what a healthy feline environment should look like in a sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
First and foremost, just tell us a little about who you are and what you do for those that may not know.
Yeah. I am a feline behaviorist, and I started after a long career in corporate America and decided that there was something missing in my lives, which was more animals. So I became a behaviorist, and I work primarily with kitties, both domestic and wild. And I currently do behavior consulting services out of my home here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I do several online versions that you can get me on the internet too. So that is my story.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and excited conversation today. You want to start about this 5 pillars? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So there are a couple organizing bodies that have guidelines that we in the welfare industry like to abide by to make sure that we are always looking at the most current research and specifications for our feline friends. And two of the main bodies that do that sort of guidance are the Feline Veterinary Medical Association and the International Society of Feline Medicine. And they have come up with what they call the 5 pillars of a healthy feline environment. And so I always like to talk to my clients and folks about all those different aspects because they're varied. And that is one of the things that we look at right away to see in their environment if something is not quite right or could be better. That actually does help a lot with behavior issues. So going through those things, the first pillar is just to provide a safe space. So a kitty should have, all their basic needs met and also have a sense of safety, not just in the moment, but in their whole environment. So if you think about, fear, anxiety, and stress, that usually comes from not having a feeling of safety. So providing that safe environment is kind of the baseline. So we want to do that as the first pillar. And then we also want to make sure that the kitty has multiple resources. So we don't want the kitty to feel like they either have to compete for resources if it's a multi-cat or multi-animal household, but also to have options so that, if there's one kitty, the rule is you have 2 litter boxes so that they have a choice. And giving them choice and control over that is very important for their overall well-being, certainly their mental well-being, but physical well-being too. And remember that our kitties are solitary hunters, and they do create these social groups out there, our community kitties. When resources are abundant, they can actually live quite well in groups. And our kitties in the home have to have that same thing. So making sure that all of those resources are enough and then varied so that they have that choice and control in their environment.
Got
And
it.
then the third pillar is to basically play with your cat. So,
I
yeah,
love that.
which I love that pillar because really, when a cat plays, they're exercising all of their hunting instincts. So, you see your kitties, they kind of stalk, they wiggle their butts, getting ready to pounce, and then they pounce on something. And one of the things that I have found does a really good job for a kitty's mental state is to end a play session with either a treat or a meal. Because out
Yes.
there in the wild, if they were hunting and if they're successful, if their hunt was successful, they would actually get a meal out of it. So if we can close that loop and give Kitty a really good play session, they get exercise mentally and physically, and then at the end they get a yummy treat, then that in their primordial brain says, I have had a successful hunt, and that makes me feel great. So that one is one of my favorite ones, and it really does promote a bond between family members, caregivers, and the kitty when you can get a daily routine of play going, because it's fun for you, it's fun for them, and it's just good all around. And
Hmm.
so the fourth pillar is to be really consistent with our human interactions with kitties. So, they are very much creatures of habit, and they look for routine. So, the more that we can do meals on time, have those routine play sessions, even, when you're chilling at night, watching Netflix on the couch and you have a cuddle session, all of those things, the more predictable social interactions that we can give our kitties with us just make them feel better, more secure, and happier. And we all want happy kitties.
Yes, I do. I put mine out on the trampoline. I have like this 16 by 20 trampoline, and because they're
Oh,
cats, I don't want them out. So I had six.
yeah.
I had six of them outside on the trampoline today, so they got to have
Oh
a
my
little
gosh.
outdoor space while mommy was cleaning the house before
I
work.
love it.
We
I
got to give
love
them the
it.
playtime. Yes, yes, yes. And actually, wait,
Yeah.
hold on. My son slept with this is so cute. My son slept with a cat toy last night,
Oh,
a little wand with the bells. So this morning
yeah.
he wakes up and goes like this. He's never done this. And all of a sudden, the cats come running in. I was like, this is a
I
great
love
idea. We
it.
could pop them in, the ones that aren't
Yeah.
from the baby. So I love it. I love
They've
it.
heard their call.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. All
That's
right.
wonderful.
Go
Yeah, and
continue,
that's,
continue.
the such an
Hmm.
important thing is that bond that we can share with them. And, the more that they can build trust and have those really amazing moments like that, like waking up and like, oh my gosh, it's playtime and I get to go spend time with my favorite humans. That's amazing. So you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much. All right. What else?
Yeah.
What else is going on?
Yeah, so then our final pillar is really thinking about a cat's sense of smell. So, we had talked in previous episodes just around, the different sensibilities that kitties have, because their sensory perception is different than ours, and their best sense is their sense of smell. So as we think about that, we need to provide opportunities to them for using their sense of smell in a way that is fun for them. So we can do nose work, we can do even just little pinches of catnip or silver vine, or actually have them hunt for those things, so that we respect the fact that they have a really great sense of smell that's far superior to ours, and we can utilize that to build enrichment for them.
Got it. Oh my goodness. I love it. I love it. This is so amazing. If you are just tuning in, Mel's here joining us, and she is just, I mean, I can't even describe what you are. You're just an amazing soul. You're certified,
Oh,
you have amazing education in what you do and training, and I just love that you're into cats. I never met anyone who was so into cats like you are, and what you do with all your degrees. So
thank
anyway, back to
you.
what we were saying. I forgot where my train of thought.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
lost my
yeah.
notes. Hold on. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, no worries. Yeah. Well, just building on enrichment. So, now that we know kind of how to build a healthy enrichment for our kitties, with the environmental things that we can do and just adding resources and things like that, it got me thinking, what is the point of enrichment? And, really for any creature, enrichment should really just raise the quality of life and hopefully build happiness.
Yeah.
So that got me thinking, we that have studied psychology know Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where, the foundation is all of your basic needs. And then as you build, love and belonging and all those things, you get to a sense of enlightenment, and you can live your best life. So I started thinking, why don't I build one of those for our
Yep.
kitties? And we'll
Hmm.
call that Muslow's hierarchy of needs. And
Ah.
so with that, it aligns to Maslow's. So if you think about that basic foundation for our kitties, we want to be able to give them, all of their basic needs. So food, water, shelter. If you don't have that, really any creature, then you're worried about having that or getting that or, fighting for that or whatever, the barrier might be. So if we can give that to our kitties, that then builds that psychological safety. It builds security. It builds a healthy kitty. And then that gets them to a point where they're not worried about any of those things. And so they can start to feel more love, more sense of belonging, a sense of family. And then that builds their confidence, that gets them respect, and then that gets them to happiness. So that is how I think about, going after what is foundational first. And
Yeah.
then that allows them that baseline to be able to get to living their best life.
Beautiful, which we all should be able to, and our little ones. I love it. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, what else did you want to chat about? My goodness, this whole
Yeah.
process is amazing.
Right. And
Enrichment and
then
cat nose. I got to learn all this.
yes, yeah, the cat knows. So just to kind of touch a little bit more on enrichment, some of the things that we look at that, like why do enrichment, build happiness, but there are actual real studied effects that happen from a cat getting all of these foundational things in their environment. So, it gives them the ability to express their normal behaviors, which is for me as a behaviorist, one of the things that I find the most that I get calls and emails about is, an unwanted behavior. And if they can express their normal behaviors in an appropriate way, it gives them less chance to want to do these unwanted behaviors. So that's really one of the keys of enrichment, but it also, it strengthens our bonds between us and our kitties. It builds positive associations in different and new environments. It offers them that sense of control. It alleviates a lot of fear, anxiety, and stress in their lives, which who doesn't want that? And then, again, it just improves their overall quality of life. So that those are the main reasons why we do it. And to be honest, I could say probably 50% of my clients, we can address a behavior, an unwanted behavior, by just attacking those environmental things that might not be in alignment for the kitty.
Oh my goodness. All right, interesting.
Yeah.
I'm learning as we go too, and I hope our listeners are too with all this about enrichment. It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
So then we can go into the cat nose. So as I was thinking about all the different areas that we can give our kitties enrichment, I thought, I should be able to come up with some kind of like awesome acronym. And I did. And so it actually is cat nose. So we'll take each of the letters of cat nose and we'll go through what those different areas of enrichment look like. So the C is for cognitive. So mental stimulation. So puzzles, food puzzles, games. I've got several kitties that actually like video games. There's iPad games where they can chase flies or insects or butterflies or anything like that, that just gives them something to do mentally. So cognitive enrichment is really important. And one of those things that a lot of people don't really think about. They think, well, what would I do to help that? And there's a really great website called Food Puzzles for Cats that has just a myriad of puzzles that you can either buy or do very inexpensive homemade ones that give them the opportunity to solve puzzles, work that little kitty brain so that, they're getting lots of good mental exercise. And then
Beautiful.
yeah. And then our A is activity. So the physical part of their routine. So daily play routines, interactive toys, self-play toys. I get a lot of clients, they're like, I work and I don't have time to do, all these play sessions with my kitties. And now there are really wonderful self-play toys that are either motion activated or you can set on timers that are really wonderful that can take the place of, you being in the play session, which is awesome. But if you want to add more, there's self-play that they can do too. So activity is really important. And then our T in cat nose is training. And training, I always like to think of in kind of buckets of basic training and then advanced training. So for basic training, I always like to go after what is going to build a kitty's life skills. So training to go in a carrier, training to go on car rides, things like that, that are just going to make their lives so much better if they're trained to do those things and they don't have any fear or anxiety about getting in a carrier or going to the vet or, any of those things. So that's kind of basic. And then you can get to kind of fun training, which is you can teach them how to walk on a harness, or you can teach them how to do a high five or to sit pretty, sit on their back legs and just other really fun things that, I always take the personality of the cat and look at the one that's right in front of me to say, are they kind of leaning towards, doing this sort of activity? And you kind of build on what they naturally want to do. So training is a great way to build those life skills and then also do some really fun things with your cat.
Okay, I gotta ask you a question. Can you,
Yeah.
seen it online, can you and have you ever trained a cat to use the toilet?
Yes. So that is a very specific thing that I don't do that a lot. They actually make kits, which are very good guided items that can help with it. And basically what it is a cardboard ring that will sit on top of your toilet. And
Okay,
at first, there's no hole. It's just full cardboard, but it
okay.
has concentric circles that you punch out that, slowly, I think the first one's like probably like 2 inches or something, and you put litter there. And so they go there, and then you gradually take those rings away so that they don't need the litter and they're standing on top of the toilet. I think it takes a really specific kind of cat to do that. I have really only taught a few. And if you feel any resistance that they don't want to do it, just stop. It's not something that, they need to do. It's more for, some of the pet parents that I've talked to that have wanted that either they don't want litter in the house or they have allergies or, things like that that might, steer them to that. But you really have to let the cat guide the process. And if they don't want to do it, then you don't want to force them to do that.
Amazing. I would love to do that, but I just never, I don't know. I remember seeing it in that movie. What was it? Oh, with Robert De Niro. What was it called? Gosh. Anyway, but the Jinxie sit on the toilet and do it. I was impressed. All right, so go
Yeah, yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then our N in cat nose is nutrition. And a lot of times I work with folks and their cats are either eating too much, not enough. So I can give, basic nutritional guidance. But what I find most of the time is that our kitties benefit from what we call nutraceuticals. So supplements that we can give our cats that just help with either inappropriate litter box behavior or fear, anxiety, stress, those kind of things. And there are quite a few nutraceuticals out there on the market now. And we look at each individual kitty to say, you know what, you're having marking issues, so I can add a supplement that is for that specific issue and give them those supplements through their diet. So a lot of them are oral, but there are some anxiety medications that are not oral, that are just either topical or there are calming collars. So there's a different section that isn't nutritional, but it does do those same things. So each kitty will look at, but from a nutritional level, there's many, many things that we can do to help support happiness in our kitties.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. And also, with the work that you're doing and how you're working, let me just ask you, you're helping people train in a sense with these type of enrichments, and you're doing virtual work with them too, right?
Yep.
So this is all the knowledge you can gain. You could be anywhere around the world, and I'm
Yeah.
excited to find out, yeah,
Yeah.
more about this. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. And so then we get to our O in cat nose, and that is outdoors. And if you think about it, our kitties that came from these outdoor environments, we've talked about in other sessions that, they actually can benefit from safe outdoor access. So I do not promote letting cats, free roam, because there are parasites and predators and traffic and all sorts of bad stuff out there for kitties. But we can build catios. We can teach them to walk on a harness. We can do stroller rides. There's all sorts of interesting things that we can do for our kitties to bring the outdoors to them. And I also like to bring the outdoors inside by bringing sticks, rocks, leaves, things that just have an interesting smell for them. Because again, we're going to go after their nose, respect that sense of smell and give them things that could be just interesting for them to be checking out. So that's our O. And then we get to the S, which is sensory. And that's one of my favorite ones. So, we've talked about our kitty's nose, but we can also, think about, visual stimulation, auditory stimulation, really any of their senses, tactile. So, their toys, if you find that, a kitty has a favorite kind of substrate like sisal or hemp, giving them sensory things that they really like. But certainly, smell is going to be one of the most important because we know how important that is to our kitties. And we have talked about in the past, getting pheromones, calming pheromones into their environment, but then also little things like giving them, those pinches of catnip or silver vine or cat grass, all those things that might be a sensory stimulation for them.
Got it.
And we can even do auditory. So I do a lot of calming music for kitties. So if you just, you can go on YouTube and you can do calming music for cats, and you'll get, little playlists that come back that are specifically designed for kitties. So really interesting things that you can do with them on that level. And then and then we also have taste. So, remember that, our kitties, most of them love their mealtime, treats, snacks, those kind of things. So you can actually use that as sensory stimulation as well. So, again, like if you were training and you did, a nice little play session and you end that with a yummy snack, that's a great way to engage their sense of taste.
Amazing. All right. We still have just 3 minutes left in the show. We got to move on down a little faster if we can. I know there's
definitely. So our last one is the E in cat nose, and that's just environmental. And that's really just thinking about everything all together. So, do we have enough of their basic things? Do we have enough of the kind of more advanced things that can make them happy? So just kind of thinking of that, all together. So that's really the cat nose, and a lot of stuff to think about. But, if you do get into each one of those things, every kitty's different. And so they might, react really well to something that's cognitive and maybe not so much from the sensory standpoint. But that's how you build these individual plans to make sure that every kitty is getting as much happiness out of life as possible.
Beautiful. Oh my God. Thank you so much. All right. And how can we, to wrap it up, there's still a drop more you want to say, I'm sure, and then we'll wrap it up.
I know we could do 100. Yeah.
Yay.
So I can be reached through my website, so melvinascatranch.com, and you can also get me on the web form that's there. That's really the easiest to kind of fill that out. Let me know what questions you have or what issues you're experiencing, and we can look at what it would take to get an action plan together and get your kitties happy and healthy and calm back into the house for everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pleasure having you back as always. And tell us how we can reach out to you, please.
Yeah. And so the website is the easiest, and you can also get me on my email, which is melvinascatranch@mac.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a fantastic day, and looking forward to the next time we connect.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, sweetheart.
Bye.
Bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.